let us all do we can to build a better future. So, there's been a lot of talk. We got 2 videos from Case Study QB about the changing of the guard. Now, before anything is said further, let's be very clear. No matter who is in the Democratic and Republican Party, it's a changing of guard of the neoliberal establishment. But yet, you have pundits on Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, all saying the same thing. There's a big change. You have old school Democratic lawmakers retiring, and let's face it, the boomers, sooner or later, they gotta go, either through retirement or, well, dying in old age. Let's face it, there's going to have to be a moment where you're going to have to step aside. So we got these 2 videos from Case Study QB. I want to play up the first video because I find Fox News' response to it very interesting. And yeah, let's play the first one.
Look at that. In 2022, the torch will be passed whether you like it or not. Ben Domenech wrote that, and he joins me now. You're talking about new blood in politics. How about AOC as the new blood for the Democrats? Do you think that'll fly?
I absolutely think it will, Stuart,
Yeah.
and thank you for having me on as always. I am very much of the mindset that we are seeing the end of an era in American politics in a number of different ways. The passing of the torch at long last away from the giant impact that the baby boom had on American politics. We've had 3 presidents, for instance, and Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump, all born in the same year, 1946, which is pretty amazing if you think about it.
Like, yeah, I mean, the torch has got to inevitably pass.
It has to happen.
I mean,
time is a thing.
It's got to, right? I mean, they're not actually drinking baby's blood, are they? You know,
we're not saying that they are. They are on YouTube, so calm down. But
no, it's just like, yeah, I mean, he's making one of the most obvious statements ever, and he actually he goes on to say that it's more about the moderateness of the Democratic Party that's dying, which I think is also up for debate at the present moment. But I just wanted to crack a joke. That's all. That was not substantive. You're welcome.
There's one other thing too I want to bring up. That is like, look, let's face it. When you have politicians like Nancy and Dianne Feinstein, who are well past their prime. Okay, I'm sorry. I got to be that person to say it, all right? They're in their 80s and or going on to their 90s. They got to step aside.
No, well, they're literally going to die in office.
Like, no, they're going to end up like Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
I mean, and I'm not, like, laughing and joking about that. That's, I mean, people have an expiration date.
Yeah.
If they're going to step aside and then their hip's going to fail and then they're going to be like downward.
Yeah, and the thing is, I don't respect Kira. Calm down, don't worry. I don't respect these lawmakers that stay in office longer than they should. I mean, let's face it, Nancy's in her 80s, and if Dianne Feinstein gets reelected, she's going to be 91 freaking years old. Does she even know where she's at anymore? This is a fair question to ask, and these lawmakers are being childish and immature by staying in power longer than they should. There's only so much you can do, and let's face it, what do they care about the most? That is, again, getting more money from donors and lobby groups, because that's how greedy and childish Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein, and all these other senior citizens that are in Congress right now. They gotta step aside. But I'm reading in our chat, meet the new boss, same as the old boss, because the new guard that's going to replace the old guard is basically going to be the new neoliberal batch and new neoconservative batch for our generation. And I'm very disappointed in some lawmakers of our generation that are falling into the same trap where nothing will fundamentally change. Let's play the rest of the video.
Corporate greed, corporate influence isn't going to end with their death.
Hey, but the new Democrats might know how to use cell phones.
No,
that's
God,
progress in the biggest empire on the planet.
No. Let's play
the low bar, folks.
It's a low bar. Let's play the rest of the video.
It's so low that Nancy Pelosi can jump it.
Yeah. All right. Let's play the rest of the video.
But it says something about the degree to which the baby boom really had a world-altering effect in terms of not just their impact in America, but around the world. In our politics today, I think you see a real rising generation on both the left and the right that is taking things over. In the Super Bowl the other night, we had a contest between 2 coaches who were aged 36 and 38. You know, with a situation where their victory.
I knew you were going going to say something about this part.
I just love that, like, Americans are so stupid. We got to measure things in Super Bowls. That's how they'll relate to this. You know that they had an Eminem not wearing stilettos. I mean, no, that's different Eminem. My bad. We're still upset at that other one not having stilettos anymore.
Man, yeah, I was waiting. I was actually watching your face on the monitor, waiting for you to interrupt that to mention something about that analogy or that parallel. So,
but either way, I love that Fox News is like, you should have jobs, says to mostly an audience of people that don't work.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense of Sean McVay winning with the Los Angeles Rams, set a new trend toward younger coaches taking over teams. You're going to see the same thing happen in American politics in the coming years. And as you said in your monologue, this is going to lead to a push away from the kind of moderates that have been there in the past and more toward the extremes, particularly in these safe leftist districts that these squad members are likely to win, and even more progressives are likely to win come the fall.
Do you have any names in mind?
Yeah. Just a point that I wanted to make about the kind of language that folks in the mainstream media news use. And I like to point these sorts of things out because there are occasions, right, where we just get like bold-faced lied to by the mainstream media. Sure. But really, really what they do and what they do well is they slip in certain kinds of language so that people start believing things that are, fundamentally not true, right? So he used the terminology extreme for the squad and really blue districts, right? And I've done this on the show before. I've talked about this on the show before, but I do know that we have new viewers and we're always bringing people in. So I just want to remind everybody what extreme in the words of this person looks like. Legalization of marijuana, 91% of the population
that's an extremely biased
wants
sample.
A legalization of marijuana. Money out of politics, 85% of Democrats, 81% of independents, and 78% of Republicans. Universal health care, Pew Research said 63% of U.S. adults. Free college, 76%, either somewhat agree or are in favor. A wealth tax, 68% of voters support a wealth tax proposal. Childcare, 79% of Republican voters said they support tax credits to help working families pay for childcare. And then almost the same exact shares of Republican and Democratic voters want universal pre-K programs that would function like public K through 12 schools. Breaking up big tech comes in at about 83% of Dems, 78% of Republicans. And even if you go to something like gun regulation, right now that polling's around 53%. So even the less popular policies are holding the majority of these extreme viewpoints. So I just wanted to point that out and not let that slide.
Also, another thing I just realized about this whole thing is, like, we talked about before that Americans treat politics like a sport. They literally treated politics like a sport on this. And then, it's like, what are we doing? I mean, it's like, I can imagine a similar conversation that's being had here happening as Rome fell. It's the same exact thing. It's the same thing done the same way. And I love that, like, again, what does extremist mean on not just Fox News? Because they're on, like, this side of the extremists, and MSN's over, like, here, and then CNN's somewhere in the middle of the two. What's extreme? The thing that the majority of people in the country want. That is what they define as extreme. That is what they've convinced people extreme is. They're like, oh, moderates. Moderates are the real extremists. Because moderates are that's like the opposite of all the things that people are for. It's like, hey, a moderate wants corporations to keep going the way they are. That's not a majority population thing. Moderates want to keep slowly thinking about marijuana legalization. That's not the majority thing. Moderates think that the political money system is reasonable and makes sense that we're up. That's not where the population is.
Yeah, that's
the biggest thing that mainstream media has accomplished is they have tricked people into thinking that the thing that the most people want is actually the rarest thing that people want.
Yep. And also looking at this too, this is the long-lasting impact of, I guess, boomers in politics, and not every single person who's part of the boomer generation thinks like these politicians. There should be a huge difference.
We shouldn't be blowing up kids.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is, like, let's not put a whole generation and shine a light on them and compare them to their colleagues.
Yeah, we have a lot of really great people in the chat that are there. It's just, it's the status quo.
Yeah,
the status quo just happens to mostly be by metric.
And a lot of those politicians were groomed and mentored by the silent generation.
And that's the other thing about this is that here's a lot of the people in power aren't boomers.
Yeah.
It is silent generation.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, the boomers are kind of younger than the leadership.
Boomers are actually obviously the largest constituency they're trying to represent because they have the most money. Yeah. There's no question the average net worth of boomers is much higher on average than basically any other generation. But the actual leadership and representation is silent generation.
Yep.
Which are still around.
Yeah. And as in my personal opinion, before we play the rest of the video, you shouldn't have someone in leadership position that is in their 80s and 90s. They got to step aside. That's there's no argument here. Okay.
It's crazy to think about, though. It's like I believe that as much as we say that there isn't going to be a fundamental change in either party with the generational shift, there also will be, because the thoughts, what they grew up with. Yeah. But if you're like silent generation, you're someone that was like born during World War II and then immediately got the benefit of America becoming Rome. Yeah. Baby boomers sort of came right after that and during that at the same time. But it's just interesting that the life experience, like if you look like millennials, like the life experience of a millennial or a Gen X is a lot more similar, I would say, than a silent. And that's going to mean something. I just don't know how much it'll actually mean.
Yeah, I don't know what it'll translate to in policy and with what kind of leadership we have and what happens to the parties.
Mm-hmm. Let's go ahead and play the rest of the video.
For a new generation, new blood in the Republican Party?
I think one of the really interesting things on the right at the current moment is that you have a crop of younger senators who I think are going to not just emerge in the coming years as new voices to take on a number of different topics. We've already seen that from the likes of Senator Josh Hawley, who's obviously one of the younger members of the body. But I also think that what you're going to see is just a swath of new members from across the country who are going to be elected into the House this November, many of whom are going to be kind of unexpected. And they're going to mark a shift away from the older way of doing things. There's going to be increased challenges for older members who've been there for a long time against new blood. We've seen this in the past in the Tea Party era, and I think that we're going to see it happen again this time around. What they do to the party and the impact that they have could really adjust the list of priorities that Republicans have, not just in the new Congress, but in 2024.
I'm a baby boomer. I think we kind of made a mess of politics, actually.
Pause it right there. Pause it right there. So you'd think that he would get it right. Again, this is Fox News. They have to have the market check. Could you just rewind back those few seconds or so? Because, again, he's saying he's a baby boomer. Oh, we got some things wrong. Some things happened. We screwed up.
Like, we messed up.
Just a little bit.
Oopsie.
Just a little bit. Let's play the rest of it.
24.
I'm a baby boomer. I think we kind of made a mess of politics, actually. And I'm quite prepared to pass it along to a new generation like yourself, Ben, if you do a better job. Because the baby boomers introduced this a crazy degree of personal liberation, which was fine and dandy, but, it didn't work out too well. It became identity politics. That's just my opinion.
Oh, wait, pause. I got to say something before Kit says something, and then probably Kira's going to say something on that as well. First of all, I didn't understand that. I didn't get the football analogy in there, so I no longer understand what they're saying. Second, I love that his thing is like, you know what the biggest mistake that baby boomers made?
Personal liberty.
Creating the roots of identity politics.
You know what that's signal for? What that signals to me is that when he was a younger man, probably when the hippie generation was happening, some hippie girl just said no to him. Like, he never had a chance to enjoy the personal liberation. He's like, yeah, they had the personal liberation. It was a bad idea.
It was horrible.
Probably a lot of hippie women, young, some of those foxy ladies, silver foxes now, probably just looked at him and said, no. That's what they said.
Well, he's British, too. right? Isn't he?
Yeah.
I think so.
By the way, which I think is absolutely hysterical, that he's like, I should tell Americans how to act. You should know, also, I'm British. Also, we shouldn't let foreign people tell us how to act. Also, I'm on Fox News, owned by an Australian and formerly the Saudi royal family. Also, do what I say, America. Also, gotta love his guest. I just want to throw this out there, who's like, I need to be on Fox News. Put the flag up.
Yeah. Oh, there it is.
That's
Yes.
funny.
Fox News, the
That
American
is
flag
good,
right there.
yeah.
All right, we got a few more seconds until let's play it.
Killed that background.
'Cause we got another video.
Of self-introspection that I compliment you for, Stuart, and I agree.
I agree
With that.
There you go.
I agree. I just like how he was like, yeah, we really effed things up. Bye.
I haven't. You know what? Not even that. He's saying we have things. That's the other part of the scene in More Insidious. He's not, as much as he's tying his identity to politics, he's also saying the thing we really screwed up on was personal freedoms.
Personal freedoms, liberty.
shouldn't
But that's code for good old Blarney. That is like, let's face it. There's probably some British hippie girl who just said, "Bloody hell, no!" Like all that time. I was like, "No, you're too much of a scumbag."
Possibly.
Possibly. So there you go.
He's like, no, I'd rather just make a lot of money.
just make money. Make money.
That's-
Screw the planet.
No, because again, like if you grew up at a time and you had the access to the pipeline of America being Rome. Again, it's like you could like that's the time when in America where you could be a shoe salesman and own a house, and you could get a college degree
That's
and
like
run a
getting in on
company.
the bottom level of that pyramid.
Yeah, man.
know?
Yeah,
There you go.
That's
Make
it.
it in.
That's it. He's on the. It's exactly right. He's on the bottom of an MLM
There. Oh, come on, God Almighty.
or the top of the MLM.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
I
want to be
mean,
on
that's
top
how-
of.
yeah,
You want to be
that's
on
how-
top of an MLM, not the bottom of an MLM. There you
When
go.
he was on the bottom of the MLM, it turned out to be the top.
Yeah, so there we go. But there's another video I want to bring up here too.
Anything that came through my mind.
But there's another video I want to bring up too. Again, shout out again to Case Study QB because this has to deal with the fact that there are numerous Democratic lawmakers that are resigning. That's right, they're resigning en masse. Democrats.
Well, I just want to read
Yeah,
this
go
real
ahead.
quick before we go. From E. Heller. I'm sure Bernie was crushed when he saw Mary Taylor Moore. I don't know who that is
You know
on
Mary
TV.
Tyler Moore?
You know who Mary Tyler Moore is?
Maybe if I knew.
Daniel's much younger than me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
It's easy to forget.
I'm a millennial that's almost a Zoomer.
Oh, whatever you say.
I'm a
Zoomer.
Xenial.
There you go. There you
Yeah,
go.
I like being on the border stuff. I'm the generation. We're the generation that first used computers. Everyone born after us can't say that. They always were. They grew
They're
up anyway.
always around.
But he was upset that she wore pants
There you go. All right, so let's play
like
this
those
video.
dirty celts.
So let's go ahead and play this video about
Should a
Democratic
TV show
lawmakers
called
resigning.
Mary
Let's
Tyler
play
Moore.
it.
Ah,
Tell us
I don't
something
know.
and take a look. 30 is a big number, as in 30 House Democrats now saying they will not seek re-election this year. That's more than double the number of Republicans saying that. And as you can see here, you have to go back 30 years to 1992 to eclipse the current number of House Democratic retirements. Now, some of those leaving the House are running for something else. Many say it's just more time for the family or another big challenge. But the big number is also proof that many Democrats see this midterm election climate as tough or worse than tough and believe it is possible, if not likely, they will lose the House in November. Our panel of reporters back with us. And that's the key point here for many of these. It's like, okay, I'd have to raise more money. It's a tough climate for me.
I mean, it
maybe
does-
I'd win, but maybe
we
I'd
can pause
even
here.
lose for some of them.
I mean, I've always imagined that the job as a U.S. legislator, especially on the federal level, sucks.
Yeah.
Like, it's like not worth the money you would make.
You just sit in
Doing
a room
it.
and twiddle your thumbs for 5 hours.
Awful. With like the most awful people on the planet.
Yeah.
Right?
By the way, I want to say this guy looks like his soul is slowly leaving his nose or his ear as he's about to answer this question.
Okay.
Yeah, he looks like he's in pain.
Yeah,
Like,
doesn't he look like he's in pain?
Yes.
He's like, why am I here?
Why are we here?
Why do these guys still
Why
have
do we
money?
exist? Why is there pain? Let's play it.
And then if I come back, I'm going to be the minority, and I don't want to do that.
Right. No, it is indication of kind of the growing anxiety, at least in the Democratic Party, going into the midterms. Now, when you look at Rice's seat in New York, I mean, last election she won it by about 56%. Joe Biden won it pretty comfortably as well. So it will be interesting to see if Republicans actually are able to kind of seize that in a sort of red wave. But at this point, it does seem like, you know, for most Democrats, at least for that district, it is safe. But just moving forward, you can see that when you, especially looking at that 30 number, you can really point to the anxiety in the party.
Right. And this is not connected to the big dynamic at play. But since you mentioned Rice's seat, she's from New York. She publicly said Nancy Pelosi should not be Speaker. Nancy Pelosi never, ever forgets. In her statement today, she said, Congresswoman Kathleen Rice will be missed by colleagues in our caucus.
Pause it right there.
I didn't say she'll be missed by the Speaker.
Okay, so what he's saying is Nancy Pelosi never forgets. And basically, you know, the retiring House representative didn't have some nice words to say about Nancy, and Nancy basically said she will be missed by her colleagues.
Okay.
Again, this should show you the mental maturity of Nancy Pelosi.
Nancy won't forget for now.
Until she will. Eventually, look, hey, dementia and Alzheimer's catches up to us all. Nancy's no different. So there you go. Let's play the rest of the video.
Just she would be missed by colleagues in our caucus. She never forgets. Here's why this matters. 222 Democrats in the House right now, 212 Republicans in the House right now. Midterm presidential, first president midterm year, the party in power almost always loses seats. You want to have in a tough climate, in most races, you'd rather have an incumbent because they can raise more money. They're familiar with the district. That's not always true, but it's mostly true. That's why this hurts.
Right, but this is in line with the trend. This is typically what we see happen, a wave of retirements. Has happened with Republicans in 2018. I would say the issue here is that while Democrats are still in power, this really blunts their momentum and I think weakens their leverage because Republicans are looking at them like we don't really need to work with you all in power because you're on your way out the door.
And so you look at history, first midterm challenge, Obama lost 63 House seats in his first midterm. Trump lost 40. It's unlikely Biden could lose that many. It would take a huge wave just because the districts are tighter drawn than they used to be in the old days and because you have already the very close partisan balance there. But if we go back to that other graphic, the 1992 graphic, the interesting thing about that was a lot of Democrats retired in 1991 when George H.W. Bush had sky-high approval ratings. They thought 1992 was going to be a Bush re-election year, and a lot of Democrats headed for the exits. And then things changed. So things can change. Bill Clinton won in 1992. It became the year of the women, and a lot of Democrats won in 1992. So Democrats look at the metrics now and say, tough climate, I'm out of here. But we don't know.
Absolutely. To your point, what happens next coming out of these midterms matters? I also think like those years in exile are rebuilding years.
Let's pause right here. Okay, America in 1992 is way different than America in 2022, where you have people being evicted from their homes. You have people who are losing their jobs. We're dealing with massive unemployment. And student debt and medical debt are real factors of average Americans.
Wasn't there a flock of seagulls around then too?
Mm-hmm.
There was,
and they ran really far away.
Yeah, there you go. So, you know, the side note is that look, this whole idea that maybe somehow the Democrats can pull through this, maybe potentially, but my question is, who's going to turn out to vote for the Democrats when they didn't deliver us anything in 2021? Nothing happened.
True. We got failure. Some people wanted that.
Oh, yeah.
They got what they wanted.
Yeah.
Those were Republicans, and that's why they're going to get reelected. But I just love that it's like, when I talk about the owls, is that this is, again, another great CGP Grey video where it's like, in America, like the presidential election, it's like 150,000 people determine the president. It's the owl voters that aren't sure which side to go on. They kind of flip back and forth every election cycle. It's like, it's the people that elect George Bush and go, I didn't like that. Let me try a different guy. Oh, let me try this Obama guy. I didn't like that. Let me try Trump. And then they go, I didn't like that. Let me try Biden. Those are the actual people that determine the election because of the way gerrymandering's done and the way that the swing states are put together. So, you know, and they're always talking about in the presidential elections, it's all about like suburban moms in Ohio. Because it is. Because our system is so poorly done that no states generally don't matter in the electoral college. It's like everything is incentivized to work in a way that doesn't make any sense if you want to propagate the success of a country, but it makes a lot of sense if you're trying to propagate the success of status quo.
There you go. Let's play the rest of the video.
For any party, whether it's the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, that falls below the 50 mark, right? And so let's assume for the sake of this discussion that Democrats lose power, at least in the House of Representatives. There will be rebuilding behind the scenes in all of these districts, some in the very heavy left-lean districts and some in the more centrist districts. And what emerges from that rebuilding is going to be what tells us everything about what the Democratic Party becomes after this midterm election.
And part of the party's calculation, when you have 222 to 212 and you have 30 incumbents leaving, is what do we do between now and then, right? If you're Speaker Pelosi, you're trying to convince other incumbents, hang in, I assume.
Absolutely. I mean, you want to hold this base together going towards the midterms. Yes, there's still time, you can still turn this thing around. But, as you were saying, especially as you're trying to strive towards any sort of compromise or negotiations, you want to at least put out the perception that the party is holding together at this point.
30 is the number now. We'll see. Primary season we're getting close. The primary season's coming up in many places. Some have late, but we'll see if that number grows.
CNN's like, we really need the money.
So, see that train right behind us? Yeah, that's the Democrats. They're on a one-way path off a cliff. That's what's going to happen to the Democratic Party. They've offered us nothing in return. Now, let's be very clear here. No matter what's going to happen in the years that are going to be coming after 2022, there will be a changing of the guard. But it will be the same neoliberal system, which is why we have to vote against it, which is why we have to start breaking people away from the two-party system. Because no matter what happens, whether Gen X, millennials, or Gen Z, please don't do it. But we eventually, you're going to have Democratic, Republican politicians of those generations. We got to break away from it because the system that's been put in place is designed to keep working class citizens down. And this two-party system only caters to the rich. We have, all of us, collectively, no matter what generation you're part of, we got to break away from it. That is something I think we can all agree on. And I think it's something that needs to happen now before it's too late.
Well, I would say that we're already too late. The question is, what does the new to now look like? It's like the Democrats are like, we shouldn't repair that bridge. Also, we're going to drive off it. We should turn the train around. Oh, we can't do that. We should try anyway. We should form a committee of people to think of a way to turn the train around. Oh, wait, it's off the cliff. Never mind. And then, it's the Republicans' fault.
Yeah, or you said that.
And the Republicans are literally also running another train somewhere else off the cliff, and they're like, their fault.
Yep, and with you talking about trains, all of a sudden I was reminded by that scene from Death of Stalin. Yeah, there you go. As the trains, people are coming in to see Stalin. Yeah. So there you go.
Okay.
Great film. So nonetheless, folks, a final note for this story. New generation's coming in, but nothing will fundamentally change.